Hey, good evening and welcome to Wednesday. What is it, Open Studio, Monday Night Live? I don't know. It's something, we're painting stuff. Yay, welcome everyone. All right, we worked on this pool. I got you guys even closer this time. I'm slowly figuring out this macro world that we live in. So one quick note as we're getting going, you guys actually see more than I do. In real life, because I'm looking over at the monitor right now and you guys literally have like macroscopic view. I can't see as close as you guys can see. So keep that in mind. Go easy on me. All right. So there's the pool we did last week. That was cool. And that was not supposed to rhyme, but whatever. And like I said, I think what we're going to do is we're going to start heading left of the pool because I want to fill in this gap right there. So what we'll do to kind of keep everything rolling is I think we'll do that building that's around that elementary school. And yes, now I know it's an elementary school. Last week I did not during the filming, but I found out after. So we're going to do a couple little modifications to that and just kind of get going. All right, we're good. All right, today's soapbox, as I try to get collected here. Today's soapbox, I was thinking about this over the week, and this isn't one of Brian's, even though Brian's been asking some great questions, and his whole Foundations of Art has been like the topic for the past few episodes, which has been really, really good. It's got me thinking about a lot of things. And one of the things I was thinking of kind of ties into the question of, you know, buying a good airbrush and all that stuff. We talked about tools and all that fun stuff. But the one thing I wanted to talk about today specifically was how you take care of your art and what you do your art on, and substrate and things like that. It's almost time. I'm going to put this over here so you can see this is my Winsor & Newton's, one of my zeros. This is the last one I bought, and this one's well over a year old. I get over a year on these brushes. And you guys see, I mean, I use these all the time, every single day. So and they're watercolor brushes. They're not supposed to be used for acrylic. So these things get so much abuse, but the return on investment is gigantic. And I'm going to show you how beat up this is. You're going to kind of get a feel for it. So I bent the ferrule as soon as I got it. I think I was traveling, and I think this got put in the case, and I closed it, and it got crunched. And but look at the point on that. Still after a year. So that's a quick note on getting good tools. When you have a good tool, you never worry about it. You know what I mean? And that's gigantic. So we don't have to get too far into that. But what I want to talk about is like substrates. And what I did was over here. I'm going to be bouncing around a lot tonight, so I apologize, but hang on for the ride. This is moss green. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of finish up this building here a little bit. So substrate. So when I started out, I didn't give much thought to like what I was painting on and how I took care of it after. And this goes right through college too. I'm you know, I wish I had taken better care of my stuff and thought about what I was doing a little bit more. Like, you know, I was like everyone else. You know, when I was in college, I was, you know, just trying to make ends meet. I put myself through college, which was fun. So money was never like, there wasn't a ton of money around. So when I had to do things like projects and stuff, I had to kind of not cut corners, but yeah, cut corners, I guess, in a way. I had to do whatever I needed to do. And I get that if you're in that spot. However, like I look back on some of the things that I've done and how they've degraded over time, and some of the things I would have liked to have kept in good shape, you know, just required, because of the material that I used, required an extraordinary level of conservation to keep them in good shape. And I obviously did not do that. So I've lost a lot of things that I've done. Now, that is gonna, if we kind of hit the rewind button on this for a second, before we get into any of this, you have to realize, or you have to understand what your art means to you and how important it is. And this is a personal question. This is something, you know, you go to that quiet place where no one's around and you kind of think about it by yourself, and you know, no ego, no nothing. You just kind of think about it and decide, like, all right, what is my art? mean? You know, what do I want to see it do? What do I want to see happen with it? And you may be the kind of person that is just like, well, you know, I do it, it's fun, it's more of just kind of like something I do to relieve stress, and I'm not really interested in the piece after it's done. I don't care if it sells, I don't care if anyone likes it, I don't care if it hangs around. I just, you know, I do the art for me, and that's amazingly valid, because I think all creatives do that. You know, they kind of, a big component of their art is that they would do it whether they were doing it for a living or not. And a lot of people don't do it for a living and just do it for enjoyment. So there's that. So if you're like this, you don't have to necessarily worry about what you're painting on. You know, a lot of people will just do these quick sketches on newsprint or, you know, notebook paper or whatever. And that's great. That's amazing. So you have to decide on your own, like, what it really means to you. Now, for me, I've always wanted to be an artist. You know, I wanted to be an artist that produced things that people enjoyed looking at and made them feel a feeling, good or bad. You know, I wanted to tell a story, and I wanted to, you know, really kind of like get that stuff out there. Now, in order to do that, you have to make sure that your stuff lasts long enough for people to see it. So that opens up the whole taking care of what you do and how you do it. And again, this is something that I did not do. So I'm speaking from the opposite side of, you know, of the conversation, as far as, you know, like, I did not do the right thing. So I hope that you guys do. And what I mean by that is, you know, take care of your stuff and think about what you're painting on. Like, if you're painting on something that's not going to last very long, that's obviously, you know, going to ensure that your stuff isn't around. And I know, again, you know, if you're doing, especially as a hobby, to justify spending, you know, a lot of money on substrates and things like that can be like, you know, can be daunting, I guess. Can be like a challenge, because, you know, if you don't really want to invest the money in it, that's, you know, that's it. But you also have to keep in mind, again, what that end goal is for you. If you do it as a hobby, but you really would love to see your stuff last and, you know, be appreciated, then you gotta do the right thing. And do the right thing means is you should have to start looking at things from an archival standpoint. You know, you want to look at things and how they last. And the same holds true for substrates as it does for tools. You know, you can get good stuff and you can get bad stuff. And the bad stuff is cheap and you can get it right away, but the bad stuff is also not going to last. And this goes true for canvases, for board. This is daylight blue, by the way. For like, you know, panels that you paint on, for paper, whatever the substrate may be. You know, the substrate, for those, you know, who don't know, substrate is whatever you paint on. It's that surface, and it's a nice word because, you know, it doesn't matter what you paint on. It's all the same thing. Another word, you know, that I really, you know, use a lot is substrate. Okay, what am I doing? I don't know what I'm doing. Yeah, so for instance, like the ampersand boards that I use, they're not, you know, they're not super cheap. Like, you can go in and buy a piece of MDF or MDO and, you know, throw some gesso on it and be kind of ready to go. You know what I mean? However, ampersand takes the time to treat those boards so that the acid that's in them is neutralized. So you never have acid coming through the board into your ground, which is, you know, the thing you paint on top of that before you paint. Like for me, it's Otterborn sealer. I just fixed this, by the way. I fixed the track. Now it's a track, not a pool anymore. So that's one thing that ampersand does. And, you know, a lot of companies who make those prepared boards, and I don't know any other companies that do like they do, but you know, assuming they're reputable, that's what they're going to do for you. They're going to make it archival, which means it's going to last for a very long time. It's going to last for as long as it can, really, you know, for that piece of material. And different materials last for different amounts of time, or are subject to different types of care. For instance, if you work on paper, any kind of paper, even great paper, you know, even super high expensive handmade paper, that takes a level of care that's different than if you work oil on canvas or acrylic on canvas. Acrylic on canvas is much more durable than paper. And it's not that it's better or worse, it's just a different thing, you know what I mean? So you have to keep that in mind. You know, if you love working on paper, that's great. However, your artwork now is going to take a level of care and a level of display as well. For instance, if you work on paper, your artwork can't withstand light the way that some other pieces can. So it has to be at a lower light. And you have to know that. You know, if you give your art away or sell it or it goes to a place where it's going to be displayed, you know, a museum or a gallery is going to know that a work on paper is going to need a certain, you know, certain lighting, low lighting. And if, you know, the person who has it or if the place that gets it doesn't know this is trashy. I don't like this. What I'm doing now with the windows, I'm just kind of putting them in. And again, you guys have microscopic view, so you guys get to see me screwing up live time. So I'm going to erase those windows and I'm going to do them the other way, which is make bands and that kind of stuff, because I have more control over it, but you'll see what I mean in a second. So let's erase these for a second. Hit the reset button on that. All right. So the good news is, if you want to get into that, if you feel like you'd love to have your art hang around for a while, which I hope you do, it's easy to, it's not like, you know, you don't have to be a scientist, because most places, reputable companies will, I screwed up that again too. Most reputable companies will list, because it's a big deal. If your product is archival, which means it's going to last, and it's acid free and all that fun stuff, they're going to be proud of that, and they're going to, you know, it's going to be on the label. Again, if you love working on paper, you just have to be real careful of that archival quality, of that acid-free quality. And really good art paper is going to be that way anyway. So you don't have to do too much there. You just have to worry about, you know, picking the brand you like, and, you know, and you'll be in good shape. Now, the one nice thing about science and technology is that, you know, our fun little group of apes loves to come up with ape-made products. So synthetic paper has now become a real viable option, and synthetic paper is wonderful because they can make it archival right out of the gate, which is fantastic. So if I work on, say, the UPO paper, which I do a lot for those 543s, those are no longer works on paper, even though UPO calls it a paper. I think they call it a paper. I don't know. People do. But it's synthetic paper. So it's synthetic, so it doesn't have the same requirements that actual fiber, wood-based fiber paper would have. So I can work on paper. I can work on this UPO paper, but it doesn't have the same. It can be lit in regular acrylic or oil lighting, which is crazy. That's amazing, and that's fun. And I don't have to worry about the stuff going anywhere. You know what I mean? One of the big reasons I started working on aluminum was for that reason. Now, aluminum is an amazingly corrosion-resistant, light, strong, archival material, and it just took a little bit. You know, it took being in the like motorcycle auto painting world to realize that, hey, this is the perfect substrate, which is great. You know, it's those crossovers really help. So that's why I do it, because aluminum's never going anywhere. I mean, not for a really long time. So it's just a great substrate to work on. But again, you know, I have paintings that I look at now that I did on illustration board with gouache, which illustration board, even though it's a board technically, it's really paper. It's considered paper because of the way they make it. It's a acid-free cardstock with a piece of really nice paper adhered to it. So it's paper. And I didn't take care of my stuff in the beginning, and I have a lot of pieces from my very beginning that are damaged, that are faded, that have, you know, weird mold growing on them. That's more the gouache. You know, gouache is an opaque watercolor, but it's very natural material and it's open. So if you don't take care of it, gouache would last forever, or not forever, but it would last for a very long time if you really, had it archived and took care of. But it was a level of care that I didn't understand. I was just like, I want to use gouache because that's what airbrushes are using. So I used it, and then the stuff went into a drawer somewhere, and 20 years later, it looks like garbage. So, all right, this building, I'm just kind of waiting for that coat to dry so I can fix it again. Or put another coat on. That's what I meant to say. So it's a big thing. It's a real big thing, and it's easy to put on your checklist. It's an easy thing to kind of knock out. And it just, like I said, it boils down to what you're working on, and that's it. Yeah, it does mean that you need to, invest a little bit. So again, it boils down to, like, you have to look at what you're doing. Like if you're just doing a practice piece, you're trying to get down a certain technique or whatever, then yeah, find a substitute. Find a substitute that's maybe not as expensive, and you can do that. If you love working on canvas, but you don't want to practice on a canvas because even a cheap canvas costs some money. So they have canvas pads. They have paper that has canvas texture on it that you can just mess around with and then toss when you're done. Again, I talk about the Autoborn sealer a lot. For me, absolutely any surface can be a practice surface for me, because I can spray the Autoborn sealer on anything. I can spray it on regular fiber paper. I can spray it on, that should be just about dry. I can spray it on, regular cheapo paper. I can spray it on UPO, aluminum, titanium. It doesn't matter. I could spray that on anything. So I could try out a technique on whatever material, and it's going to feel the same as when I go to spray it on, or work with it on, on the surface that I like working on, either ampersand or aluminum. And that goes true with just my regular work in general. When I'm working on this panel, this aluminum panel, it feels exactly the same to me as if I'm working on ampersand panel, because I put that Autoborn sealer on it, and that's how it works. Now you're going to see these windows are going to come out a lot, well, if I don't screw them up, these windows are going to come out a lot better now. I'm just going to let the black dry there, and then we'll put the white on, and it'll be ready to rock and roll. I thought I was going to get more into that other side, but this building is going to be worth kind of locking down and getting finished. The other fun thing, you guys can just see it right here, or it's kind of sort of behind the reference photo, but this little building right here, I have it in black, but it's really a bright red building, which is fun. So we'll get to that. We'll get to that. All right, since I got black, and I'm just kind of waiting for this to dry. Well, we could turn it into a gray, I guess. So yeah, so that's my soapbox. It's really think about what you're doing, how long you want it to last. I hope, like I said, I hope that you. Oh, let me give you another one too, in that same train wreck of thought. You may not think that your art needs to hang around right now. You may be like, well, who am I? Why should I care, and all this stuff? Who's going to care about my stuff, and blah, blah, blah. Don't think that way. If you're not sure, let someone else make that decision. You know what I'm saying? So still treat your art like it means something, and take care of it and do the right thing, even if you don't care about it. Because you never know. You never know down the road. Someone, and I'm not talking about, oh my gosh, you're going to be, the next whatever, Picasso or Da Vinci or whatever. And then, everyone's going to want everything you ever made. I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about, like, your best friend somewhere down the road says, hey, I'd love to have something from you. You know what I mean? And you don't have anything because you treated everything like garbage. It's stuff like that. So, if you're not sure, then treat it as if you are sure. Do that for me. Because, I would love to see, that artwork is protected no matter what. Because you really do. You never know. You never know You know, and who knows, you might be the next Andy Warhol and you don't even know it. You know, it's like someone may say, oh my gosh, and then boom, you're like off to the races, and they're like, oh, we'd love to see, you know, we want everything from you, we want to see everything, and you don't have anything, or, you know, it's not a good look. All right, how are we doing? We're doing good. Just letting that dry a little bit. I think that's probably dry. I want to make sure that black is dry before I do this, because obviously with this next step, if it is not, I'm going to make a huge mess. The other thing I'm going to do, I got plenty of white on the palette, but I'm going to put out a brand new drop just because I want this white to be as opaque as it possibly can be. And again, with the wet palette, it absorbs a lot of water. So I want to make sure that I'm using the strongest paint I can for this, because I want it to cover in as few passes as possible. So what I'm doing here is I've taken a little tiny bit of paint out of the droplet, and I'm moving over the side here, and I'm paletting the brush. And what that is I'm loading up the brush with paint, but I'm also pointing the tip. So you just kind of dip it into the paint with all the bristles. Well, not all the bristles. You don't want to go down to the ferrule, the metal part, because you know you'll bend the bristles and you don't want to damage them. But you go down until you get as much bend as you can out of the brush. And then I drag it a little bit as I kind of do this. So I'm dragging it and spinning it at the same time. And what that does is it puts a point on the brush. So now it's loaded with paint. It's nice and pointy. So now if I'm lucky, I'm going to start with the top. I'll clean up well, and it'll give me a chance to see if the line is working. See why it needs to be opaque? Because you really only get one shot at it, and you can see how not opaque that is. It's funny because I can't. But you know what? These windows, I don't know if you can see it in the reference, these windows are kind of blurry, so I'm okay with that. I'm not going to take a chance. If that was up front, let me get this back into focus land. If that was up front, like in the lower part of the painting, I may take a shot and redo those, you know, try to get in. I'm looking at what you guys are seeing, and I really want to touch that again. I run the risk here, though, because if this doesn't work out, you know, I'm going to have to just redo the whole thing again. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to palette the brush, but this time I'm going to only put enough paint in for half the bristles. Before it was like all the bristles, but this it's just half the bristles. So it's going to be more of a dry brush type of thing. Oh my goodness, this is tight. I don't want to do all of them. I just want to kind of pick at it. Yeah, I'm not going to mess with it. I like it. It gives the impression of those windows. They're square and it works. Again, you guys are insanely close. Like I can't even see that, you know? Like I can barely see what's going on there. Interesting. Okay, that's good. What's next? I think that's good. I think it's good. We still got 7 minutes, so we're gonna start moving on. All right. There's a kind of a greenish building right here, but I'm not gonna take the time to airbrush that yet, so I think what I'll do is I'll jump down to here and all right, what am I looking at? Is that all the way down there? Yeah, that's all the way down there. Wow. All that, then there's a street, but the street, see, here's where it gets weird. I got these buildings right here. Let's work on these because I can see them. Again, I'm looking for landmarks, you know, I'm looking for things that pop out that I'm like, okay, I got that. It's that guy, and then there's this one right here. Some stuff going on down in here too. And then I gotta be careful because that streak comes through here too. So I'm gonna put that in now because I think I need to have that. It's gonna be a lighter gray though. I'm gonna go a little bit lighter than I think it is, and then I'll adjust. So this leads up into the green building, which is right at the top of this. There we go. So I really want to make sure I get the spacing in for that road, because this road comes right down and then curves in a little bit down here. Yeah. Again, it's pretty much the same color as the sealer or the base coat that we put down. But that's good. Okay, good. And I think I still have red on here somewhere. Yeah, I do. So I'm going to make another brick red color, and we'll get this little red building in here. It's a blob. Okay. So those things, and then this guy is tucked in right here. Yeah, perfect. There's another red building somewhere over here, but I can't figure out where it is with just what I have, so I'm going to wait on that. Because there's also this little road right here. All right, I'm starting to catch up now. Yeah, this right here. Oh, no. Okay. No, it is, right. See what I mean? Totally manic. I got it, though. All right, I'm catching up. So same thing, grab a little bit of black. What I was kind of looking at was the edge of this building here is another little road. So I'm going to kind of throw that in. I'm going to have to airbrush this building because it's too big to paintbrush. I mean, not really, but... I can start defining the shape of these little white roofs because behind them is black. Yeah. Lovely. And it sets up the building right above here. All right, good. Side of this road. There's a lot of little buildings right in here. We're gonna have to figure that out. Okay, and those the gray. Darker gray though. Yeah. So I always said, everyone asks me, like, to use magnifiers and everything. Right now I don't, although, I'm mid-50s. I'm 56 right now. And my eyes are changing, It's taken a long time. I've always had, terrible distance vision. I've always needed glasses for that kind of stuff. But my close-up vision's always been really good. But that's, I'm getting older and that's changing. So I always said when I couldn't do this anymore, like when I couldn't do when I couldn't do it without magnification, that I would just stop and start working bigger. I don't know that that's the truth. Like, I really like painting small. So I might start using readers when it gets to that point. I don't know. Gotta put some windows in these little buildings right here before we finish up, because we're just about there now. Yeah, let's put windows in, and I think it's a good spot. I'm glad though, we got that whole elementary school done, which is great, and then we're moving on. So in the next episode, we're just gonna keep hammering on this little spot, and we're taking it out. We're taking it out in chunks, and I love that. These windows are so tiny that they just have to kind of be indicated. And what I'm using here is a dark gray too. They're not black. So that gives me a little bit of variation in there too from all the other ones. It'd be so easy. You know, we talk about repetition and variation. It'd be so easy to just do all these micro details with black, you know? But you'd pick that up. You would. Where if I do like some of them in black and some of them in a dark gray and some of them in medium gray, your brain can't process that as individually, but it picks up the pattern, you know? So it's a little nothing there. Okay, great. Let's take a look at the whole thing. And here it is. All right, so again, if you're losing your place in this, which is easy to do, here's a little elementary school that we did, and we worked on this little spot right here. So I mean, if you rewind this video a little bit, you know, you see how close you were. You were only really seeing this area right here, and you get an idea. Now here's my big fat hand, so you get an idea of how small that area really is, right? But again, if we can knock out this little section right here, it only leaves this wedge right up here. And again, I keep saying it, it is going to get a little bit faster as we get into especially this little neighborhood right here, because these are really not buildings, they're more like little houses or whatever, apartments or something. So all that stuff is really more of a pattern. And then certainly across the way there's a couple bigger buildings, but there's a lot more patterning going on there. The same thing as the fog kind of is, you know, settling on this side of the city. A lot of stuff up here doesn't have to be really super crazy detailed because it's going to be kind of washed out by that fog. So there we go. All right. So thank you for joining me. If you like what I'm doing here, please hit that like and subscribe and click that bell icon. It is the free way to support what we do. And if you know someone who would be interested in it and want to share in the shenanigans, please let them know by sharing it. And if you'd like to become a member here, that would be amazing. It would help us out. You could be one of these wonderful people, and that helps keep the lights on here. You get early access to the time-lapse Tuesday video, as well as a 10% discount on everything on my store, including original paintings. So it's a great deal. All right, so for Steve Leahy and Through Lachlan's Eyes, you guys are the best, and I will catch you guys next week. Have a great one.